This is the story of a poor young man who made a living by selling tea. But one day, a Jinn woman, Jinn Zadi, entered his life, and what she did to him will leave you shocked. In the lonely lanes of a small village, under the shadow of a neem tree, stood an old tea stall. Wooden benches, a small stove with a kettle always boiling, and a hazy mirror reflecting a blurry figure. This was No Man's world. No Man wasn't a boy with big dreams. His only wishes were that his mother's medicine arrived on time, the house rent could be paid, and one day he might repay his father's old debts. This shop was once his father's pride. The taste of his tea was famous throughout the village. People used to say, "There's magic in No Man's father's hands." But times had changed. Now, it was No Man who stood behind the counter, sweat on his forehead, pain in his heart, and exhaustion in his eyes. His father had died after a long illness. The disease had eaten away his body, and debt had consumed their home. Medicine, hospital, ambulance, everything had been borrowed. Now, even as grass grew over his father's grave, No Man was counting debts older than himself. He would open the shop early each morning, set aside milk for his mother, and place the kettle on the stove. Laborers, carpenters, farmers, all came for tea and never forgot to say, "No Man, your tea has the same magic as your father's." He would smile, but behind that smile was fatigue, sleepless nights, and the sound of his mother's persistent cough. Her fever wouldn't go away, and every month they had to travel to the city for medicine. The doctor always said, "Your mother needs peace, medicine, and rest." But No Man stayed silent. He knew none of these were in his reach. With every customer, he made mental calculations. 2 cups of tea, ... 10 saved. In 5 days, maybe I can buy 1 bottle of medicine, ... Life was passing by in a series of calculations. It was just another ordinary day in the village. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but No Man had already left home with his thermos of tea. His path was the same, a dusty trail running between the fields, leading from the quiet village road to the market. But today, there was no freshness on his face, only the shadow of deep worry. Just last evening, that man had returned, the same one from whom No Man had borrowed money for his father's treatment. This time, his tone was harsh. There was a threat in his eyes and sarcasm in his voice. "Enough is enough. No Man, pay me in 2 days, or I'll take what's mine." No Man had bowed his head and replied, "Inshallah," but in his heart, there was only helplessness. He knew nothing could be arranged in 2 days. Lost in these thoughts, something suddenly struck his foot. He stopped. Looking around, he saw nothing but silence, and a small wooden box that had rolled aside after hitting his foot. Curious, No Man bent down and picked it up. It was an old wooden box, carved with strange patterns, almost as if it were a relic from another time. "What is this doing here?" he wondered aloud. There was no answer. The box appeared locked. He thought of opening it, but then remembered he was already late for the market. So, he tucked it inside his bag and continued on his way. The day passed like usual. Customers came. Tea was made. Utensils were washed, but No Man's mind kept drifting back to the bag and the mysterious box inside it. By evening, he hurriedly closed the shop and headed home. A light drizzle had begun on the way. He walked faster, heart racing with curiosity tonight. He would finally open the box, but when he reached home and opened his bag, his face turned pale. The box was gone. Where did it go? He gasped. Maybe it had fallen along the way. Let it go. Who knows what it was anyway? He told himself to feel better, but something inside him remained unsettled. A strange restlessness had begun to stir deep within No Man's heart, one he couldn't quite understand. He had no idea that the old wooden box he had dropped days ago had already unlocked a secret tied not only to his past, but also to his destiny. It seemed like just another ordinary day, Noman stood as usual in the small back room of his tea stall, lost in the swirling steam of the boiling kettle, the clinking of cups, the soft hum of customers, and the faint whistle of the brewing tea. It was all part of his daily rhythm now. The summer heat lingered, but a light breeze moved through the marketplace. Then, the doorbell chimed with a soft jingle. Noman lifted his head lazily, but the moment he saw who stood at the entrance, time seemed to freeze. There, at the doorway, stood a girl. She wore a radiant white salwar kameez, her glowing scarf neatly draped over her head. Her face shimmered with such innocence, such purity, as if she were the first light of morning itself. In a gentle voice she asked, "Excuse me, may I have some tea?" Noman lowered his eyes quickly. His heart began to race. Trying to steady his voice, he replied politely, "Why, yes, of course, ma'am. Just a moment." The girl stepped softly into the shop and sat on one of the clean wooden benches in the corner. Noman made the tea with quiet focus and placed the cup gently in front of her. "Here you go, your tea." She gave him a soft smile and began sipping it slowly. There was grace in her every movement and a kind of peaceful dignity in her presence. A few minutes passed. She finished her tea, reached into her purse, and handed Noman two folded notes. "The tea was lovely," she said, smiling kindly. "Thank you." Then she walked out the door, adjusted her scarf, and disappeared into the narrow street, her footsteps light as a whisper. Noman stood still, frozen, staring at the spot where she had vanished. For a while, he said nothing. Then he took a deep breath and quietly whispered to himself, who was she? It had been a short and simple encounter, yet something about her left a lasting mark on his heart. What Noman didn't know was that these few fleeting moments would soon become the most important turning point of his entire life. As Noman walked home from work that evening, he spotted the same girl, standing silently near a tree by the roadside, tears streaming down her cheeks. Concerned, he walked up to her and asked, "What's wrong?" Through quiet sobs, she replied, "I have no one. I'm all alone. I have no home, nowhere to go." Noman hesitated only for a moment, then said gently, "You can come with me. I live with my mother. You can stay with us until we figure something out." The girl nodded faintly and began walking with him, her head lowered, step silent. When they reached the door of his small mud brick home, Noman pushed it open softly and called out, "Amy, I'm home, and we have a guest." His frail mother slowly opened her tired eyes and asked in a weak voice, "Beta, who is she?" Noman gestured toward the girl, who now stood quietly behind him, her gaze lowered in modesty. "Amy, she's alone. She has no one. I thought maybe she could stay with us for a while, just until she finds shelter." The old woman looked at the girl for a moment, then said softly, "Those who have no one always have Allah, and if Allah has chosen our hands to give someone shelter, then it's a blessing for us." At her words, the girl burst into tears again. She quickly stepped forward and dropped to her knees, holding the old woman's feet. "May Allah reward you, Amy. Today I've found someone who feels like a mother." The woman gently patted her head, comforting her. Noman didn't realize that this girl wasn't here just for a few nights. She had come to rewrite his entire fate. A week had passed since Mariam, that was her name, came into their home. Her soft footsteps in the kitchen, the faint clinking of utensils, her gentle laughter, all brought new life to the tiny mud house. Even Noman's mother had begun to feel better. He would often hear her say, "Allah has sent us a blessing through your hands, my son. She is a gift." And Mariam, she would just smile quietly, never saying much. But that morning, something was different. Noman was getting ready to leave for his shop when suddenly a loud knock shook the door. Startled, he rushed outside and opened it. Standing before him was the same man again, a stiff face, eyes as cold as ice. Give me my money by tomorrow, Noman, the man warned, or I'll have your shop sealed. This is your final warning. Without waiting for a reply, he turned and walked away. Noman closed the door silently, but as he turned around, he saw Miriam standing in the kitchen doorway. She had witnessed everything, but strangely, her face wore a calm, serene smile, as if she already knew everything would somehow be okay. Noman tried to steady himself and stepped outside. His mind was spinning. Maybe I'll have to borrow again, or sell something, ... He walked through the narrow back path of the village. The sun was low, the air still, not a soul in sight. And then he stopped. It was the same place, that same dusty, deserted road, the same old tree by the bend. And there, once again, the same wooden box. Lying on the ground, his heart skipped a beat. He slowly reached down, picked it up. It was sealed. Aged wood, the same mysterious carvings. But this time, he didn't hesitate. He opened the box. Inside, bundles of money, neatly stacked, clean, crisp, like they had just been placed there. Noman's eyes widened in disbelief. There was no name, no clue, and no one around. But deep in his heart, he knew, these aren't from any person. They're from the one who knows every secret, who controls everything. Tears welled up in his eyes. He clutched the money to his chest, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Ya Allah, thank you." The next morning, he went straight to the man he owed money to, and settled the entire debt. The man stared at him, stunned. "Where did you get all this money?" Noman simply smiled. Help always comes from where you least expect it. But what Noman didn't realize was that this help hadn't come from any human. It had come from a mysterious, unseen force, a hand that cannot be seen. That night, in his dimly lit room, the old ceiling fan creaked above. A single candle flickered in the corner. Noman sat on his bed, quietly lost in thought. His face showed a strange mix of guilt and hesitation. Should I tell Miriam how I truly feel? Does she feel the same about me? These questions had lived in his heart for days. His heart was restless, his mind clouded, and finally his emotions overpowered his hesitation. He picked up a pen and began to write the words that had lived in his heart for years. Miriam, I don't know how to say this, but ever since you came into our home, it's like a light has entered my life. I want to marry you. I don't know if you feel the same, ... But if there's even a small place for me in your heart, I wish for us to be joined in a sacred bond of nik. The next morning, Noman quietly handed the letter to Miriam. His heart was pounding as if he were walking into an exam. The day passed slowly. Then evening came, and with it, a reply. Another letter, silent, slipped into his hand. His fingers trembled as he opened it. Noman, what you wrote, I've wanted to hear for so long. What's hidden in your words is exactly what I've held in my heart. Yes, I am ready to be yours. That very evening, Noman gathered the courage to tell his mother. She smiled gently, placed her hand on his head, and said, My son, when Allah brings two hearts together, no storm in this world can tear them apart. Don't worry, I will speak to Miriam myself very soon. The two of you will be joined in Nika. Noman's heart felt light for the first time in a long while. But what he didn't know was that this peace was the calm before the storm. The next day, at the shop, Noman looked visibly tense. Marriage preparations, his mother's health, and a strange fear deep inside. All of it hung over his face like a shadow. He was cleaning the counter, the kettle boiling quietly behind him, when suddenly, he froze. His eyes landed behind the counter. It was back, that same wooden box. His heart began to pound. He stepped forward, slowly, reached for the box. His hands trembled as he lifted it. Same carvings, same rough texture, same eerie, unplaceable scent, with shaking fingers. He opened it, and for a moment it felt like the world stood still. Inside, a large stack of neatly arranged currency notes. But this time, there was something else. A folded white paper. A letter, handwritten. Noman quickly took it out and began to read. Noman, your silent hard work, your service to your mother, and your respect for an orphan girl. These are your true treasures. This is the reward for your courage. All of this is for you, your well-wisher. Noman was stunned, confused. He kept reading the letter again and again. Who was this? Who had been watching him for so long? Who knew the secrets of his heart so well? 1,000 questions swirled in his mind. That night, he couldn't sleep. Was it a human or something from beyond? Because this was no longer a one-time event. He had started seeing those wooden boxes frequently, either near his shop or around the house. Every time, money inside, and a note, written with a soft, understanding hand, as if someone was listening to his unspoken thoughts, walking silently by his side, yet never visible. Now, every time after prayer, he would glance up at the sky and whisper, if Allah sends someone to help, they can do so even while hidden. But now, his heart had begun to desire something to find out the truth. Life had changed. There was light. Now, his small shop had grown into a humble tea hotel. Inside, 4 wooden tables. Outside, a canopy for guests. Tea, breakfast, lunch, everything was served. That crushing debt that had once bowed his head was now just a story of the past. Noman finally had a little relief in his hands and hope in his heart. And it was during this time that his mother made a quiet decision. One afternoon, while Noman was at the hotel, his mother called Miriam to sit beside her. Miriam came silently, head covered, eyes lowered. She sat before the elderly woman with respect, with gentle affection. The mother took her hand. My daughter, you're an orphan, but we've always treated you like our own. And now, I want you to be ours forever. A wave of shock crossed Miriam's face. Her eyes filled with tears, as if those words had pierced her heart. She lowered her gaze. She said nothing. No yes, no no. But the old woman took her silence as a yes. The next morning, the sun rose. The birds chirped. Noman stepped out, ready for work. But something felt strange. Miriam wasn't in her room, not in the kitchen, not in the courtyard. The doors were closed. The house was silent, and his mother, Noman's mother, called out again and again, Miriam, Beta, where are you? But no answer came. Noman ran from street to street, door to door, behind the hotel, at the corner of the market, everywhere. Double quotes. Has anyone seen Miriam? He asked. But everyone shook their heads. 3 days passed, then 4. Still, no sign of Miriam. No clothes left behind. No note, no trace. Nothing. It was as if she had turned into air and vanished. Was she angry with us? Was she ever truly an orphan? Or was there some secret hidden in those silent eyes? Noman's mother now sat quietly, staring at the doorway with blank eyes. And Noman would return home each day saying, Hammy, I couldn't find her today either. And so, a mysterious silence settled over their lives. It was one dull, lonely afternoon. Noman walked alone on the same deserted village road, lost in memories, heart weighed down, Miriam's face floating. In his eyes, he reached the exact same tree, the same spot, where he had once found her crying. Suddenly his eyes fell on something on the ground, a wooden box. His steps froze. His heart began to race. It was the same kind of box. He bent down, hands trembling, and opened it. Inside was a letter. He unfolded it and read, Noman, it's me, Miriam. I know you must be heartbroken by my sudden disappearance, and I know you've been searching for me, but we can never meet again, because I'm not human. I am a Jinnzadi, born of the Jinn. Years ago, a cruel Jinn had imprisoned me, but unknowingly, you freed me. I am deeply grateful. I fell in love with you, and who wouldn't? The kindness in your heart, the love from a mother like yours, it made a home in my soul. The money that kept arriving for you, that was from me. For me, it wasn't hard to give, but to stay with you, that was impossible. I've gone back to my world now, forever. But I left behind one last gift for you, at your shop. It is yours. Keep it, or sell it. Let it shape the rest of your life. Just yours, Miriam. As the letter ended, No Man's hands began to tremble. His eyes filled with tears. He whispered softly, Miriam, ... No Man sat down on the ground, his heart echoing with Miriam's final words. They wouldn't stop ringing in his mind. Slowly, he stood up and walked back to the shop. There, beneath the counter, he found one last wooden box, just where she said it would be. His hands trembled as he opened it, and inside, ... was a radiant diamond, a diamond so pure, so rare, it could provide for 7 generations. Noman's eyes widened in disbelief, his heart twisted with longing, his lips murmured a silent thank you. He knew. His life had changed forever. He bought a beautiful new home, expanded his business, and in time, he got married. But even now, when he's alone, ... on quiet nights, he looks up at the ceiling, lost in thought, and whispers to himself, there was once a Jinn girl, Miriam, who came into my life and changed everything. A love that could never be fully spoken, ... but could never be forgotten. And one truth, he never told anyone, not even his mother.